Welcome everybody to the Formula Virtual Racing recap show of season 14. Today we're going to look at all the things that happened this season. I'm here together with Kaan Dogger. Kaan, hello.
Hello, how are you doing, Leroy?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
Good, pretty good, thank you.
Yeah, so we've got a few topics. We've prepared a few topics to talk about this season. A lot has happened. We've seen almost total domination from Legend. We'll get into that later, of course, but a lot of things have happened as well behind what he has done. Um, I think there has been a lot of drama, and we'll just get into that today. So, starting off with the first topic, we have Can Doger here. He is Turkey's best driver in FVR ever. So why not just start with Can season? Can, how did it go? Just give us a quick summary of what you thought of your season.
To begin with, it was not great, so I was not living up to that name being the best Turkish driver. But um, I think the season started with in Texas, and the race I qualified P15, I believe, and like it is something that I'm just not used to. I'm used to, of course, I don't expect to be on pole or top three as
Mm-hmm.
qualifying is not my
Yeah.
strong side, but I didn't expect to be in P15 either. So it was a shock, but I thought, the race pace is where I get going and where I make the impact. But it didn't go great as either. So I finished P11 and the race was I was just in the middle of nowhere. I think I had a battle with Tim at some parts, but you know how this game works. So when you lose slipstream and if there's no safety car, it's just gone. If you don't have the pace, there is just no way you can follow the guys in front.
Yeah, of course, compared to last season, you finished sixth in the championship last season. This time round, you finished P9 on half of the points that you got last season. Was it a struggle with the game that was really like bringing you down, or what was it that made you struggle at the start of this season? Because we can see, of course, Australia as well, the qualifying position 16, 1.7 seconds down on Legend. Of course, Legend, he's really quick, so we shouldn't really measure him to anyone, but still, 16th, there's a lot to win there, Khan. You finished ninth in that race in Australia. Well, like you
Yeah,
said, well, what was the issue really?
I think that's the main problem. I don't know what the issue is because uh, last season, season 13 it was the same game. Of course, I'm not a fan of F124. The handling is not great. It just doesn't fit my driving style, but you don't expect to be going that bad in just one season, especially when the gap between the seasons is just 2 to 3 weeks. So I didn't change anything. I've been doing everything the same, and maybe that's the problem. I don't know. So uh, in Australia, I think P16, it was just a bad result. I cut the corners a few times, and then the race was I just had a bit of luck with P9, but
Mm-hmm.
when when you are um, when you expect to be leading the midfield, P9 doesn't really satisfy you. It's points, but it doesn't mean anything to you, I think.
Yeah, because that's really what you've been doing, like leading this midfield. Like for the past four seasons, you started in season 10. You started strong immediately. You were already like in the top 10, well in the top 10. Season 11, 12, 13, they were all very good. You made like a good impression, and then this season was really a struggle. For this season, you teamed up with Borbune. He's finished in P2 before. You have as well. Both you have like
Yeah,
the same highest finish ever. You have got like seven podiums in your career. That's more than myself. But what were the expectations at the start of the season? Did you think like, oh, Borbune, that is like a good teammate because he is. He's a very good driver. Um, was this what you were expecting at the start of the season? That is the question that I want to ask you.
Not at all. Of course,
No.
I didn't expect to be, yeah, I didn't expect to be fighting for the championship because you need to be realistic. But uh, I did not have a consistent teammate since Luke. So
Hmm.
no offense
Yeah.
to Zaber, he's a great teammate. He's a great team player. But we just have to be realistic. I didn't have the pace. He didn't have the pace, and we were in nowhere. But with Bor, I think we have a similar driving style. So
Hmm.
he is he's just there when it matters. He just keeps it consistent. Maybe he's not the fastest guy out there, but he just somehow puts himself in the right place in the right time at the right time. But somehow that didn't work this season. So
Yeah.
we still got some points. I think it was P9 and P10. It should be Saudi Arabia, I think.
Hmm.
But of course, you expect much more to with the consistency you got.
Yeah, and Monaco as well. You too got a really great result there. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
Bourbier,
that was that was the best race.
he is a really good driver. I think what you're saying is like completely true. You both kind of have the same driving style. I also see like zero to none penalty points handed to you afterwards, or any penalties on most of the occasions, of course. Um, I believe you picked up that clean driver award as well somewhere. What was it? 2 seasons ago?
It was, I think, last season,
Yeah,
season 13. It,
yeah,
it
last
should be.
season. I think Bor is kind of like that driver as well. So it's really disappointing to see that you both finished this low because, well, Sauber they finished eighth last season. They were sixth, so it's quite disappointing to see that a team with this much potential just didn't really reach what they wanted to reach. Um,
Exactly.
yeah, now let's just get into the more positive things, Can, because later in the season, pretty much halfway through, after we had that break and we went to Portugal, you actually started getting a good streak of results. Pretty much getting a point every race.
Yeah. I think from round six onwards, uh, excluding Netherlands because it
Hmm.
was still P10, not that great,
Yeah.
I got the results that I was used to getting, like P7 in Portugal, P5 in Monaco, and once again P5 in Britain. So it was consistent results. And if I did the same from round one, I think I would be around the same place I was like last season and the previous seasons. So I don't really know what changed because it's really difficult to understand that. But it was good to see the improvement, but still disappointing to not get a podium, which I managed to do every single season I raced in FER.
Yeah. Yeah, and when I look at the start of the season, you of course see Australia qualifying P16, Saudi Arabia you qualified P17. Um,
Yeah,
but you turned those around very well to get a P9 on both occasions. Towards the end, you saw that the qualifying was getting a little bit better, and then the results immediately get better as well. The lowest that you've qualified in that last half was in Mexico, round 9, that was P14. You got yourself back to P8 there. Um, so I think
yep,
it has
exactly.
to do with the qualifying a little bit. Yeah, what really are the plans for next season in terms of qualifying? Because you're going to continue next season. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, of course, qualifying is really important, and it sucks that it's not my greatest attribute in racing because I'm not really good at in single lap. I'm more of
mhm.
I focus on the race pace, the racecraft, but I think Saudi Arabia was my worst ever result in FBR in terms of qualifying. But that maybe that changed something, After that, you can see the results were much better, and it just depends on the track as well. I remember the lap in Great Britain, P8 is of course not so great, but
Yeah, but it was
after
a
you
wet
have
qualifying, so
exactly,
yeah.
I remembered that lap being great. I really enjoyed that lap. And the result of the race was even better. So I just focused on my race. I followed the leaders, and I think that's what matters. As I've said before, when you lose the slipstream, when you lose the lead group, it's just gone. There's no way unless there is a safety car or something.
Yeah, and we had, of course, it didn't really look like it was a really competitive season because we had Legend winning like almost every race together with Avesta. But there were a lot of guys from, let's say, P3 to P8 that were really quick. To name a few, Callum, Dylan, Matthew, Cops, he was very often in the mix. Juan Hernandez was in the mix. Tyler Davison was in the mix. So I think compared to last season, there is a lot of more competition for those places around P6, P7, which is where you normally are. So
Definitely.
I think that, well, it may have been a surprise that you couldn't really get the results at the start of this season. When you look at the end of the season, the results are actually quite good, and you are actually very well in the mix uh, with those guys for like a podium spot.
Yeah, exactly. So when you look at it, I think Luke is, for this season, Luke finished in positions that I used to finish in the previous seasons. So I think that explains a lot as well because Luke used to fight for wins. He was on the podium consistently, but with this season, it was very competitive at the top. So he was just around, I think, from P3 to P6, P8, he was around that place. He also got P2, of course, but
Mm-hmm.
in the majority of the races, he was in the upper midfield.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's the prime example that you're giving here. We'll talk to Luke later on in this recap, so he can explain it himself. But I think that what you're saying is completely true, and it's really the matter of the competition is getting better. Of course, we've lost. Well, we didn't really lose him because he was there still for one race. Lewis McWilliam, he hasn't been racing for a while. He's of course one of those names who is usually at the top, and he didn't really race this season. He hasn't raced for quite a while as a main driver,
Yeah,
but there's names that are falling off the list, but there's also like a lot of names that are coming back onto that list, and those people, naming Dylan and Callum, for example, they've started this season and they've put in like crazy good performances at the start, and that means that some people who are normally at like P6, P5, they will go down the order a little bit because these fast guys are coming in, and I think we will have that next season as well. I think the competition will,
definitely.
yeah, continue to rise, and it will be getting better. Which just means that there's people who are going to be hit with a surprise at the start of the season, and they're going to be a little bit further back than what they used to be. And I think that is exactly what's happened to you then, Khan.
Exactly, unfortunately. But of course, for the next season, I'll try to improve that. I have to focus on my qualifying, especially because,
Yeah.
as I said, it really matters. If you're just starting P10, you are just in the middle of chaos. You can't get anywhere. And if there's just one small incident is enough to ruin your race, you know. You don't have to
Mm-hmm.
get damage, but if you are behind a slower guy or someone with damage, it's just very difficult to get past. And when you manage to do so, it's just way too late.
Yeah. And of course, you can see the average qualifying gap to pole that you've got this season was 1.8 seconds. So that kind of does explain, yeah, well, what you're talking about, the qualifying. I think that is the issue for
Maybe,
many people, but
yeah,
yeah, 1.8, you can work for that. There's a like a lot to improve on still.
definitely. I think that average would be that gap would be less if
Mm-hmm.
the legend was not racing, you know,
Yeah,
because
maybe.
there's legend on pole and there's I think 2/10, 3/10 to P2 sometimes.
Well, I mean, if we look at Monaco, for example, that's you're 1.7 seconds behind, but Legend he was like 5 tenths ahead of P2 there.
Yeah,
Um,
that was an
so
insane lap.
So like the stats are there, but they're not always representative of what the result is. But yeah, if you look to like for example Portugal or Brazil or Saudi Arabia, those results where you're like 2.5 seconds down, that's really um, the results where you can try and make a difference. So I think that what you're saying there is correct. Just try and focus on the qualifying next season and get that a little bit better, especially those laps around Saudi Arabia, for example. You get 17th, you're 2.6 seconds behind. I believe that if you cut like 1.5 seconds off that, you're 1.1, you will be in the top 10. So
Exactly. Like that midfield is it's really tight. Like a small improvement can put you much up further, you know?
yeah, well, I think that's it then, Khan, for this first topic here. And
I believe so, yeah.
we're just gonna go to the next one.
Hello, Nathan. Welcome to the FVR season recap. So, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm very good, thanks.
So, you had I think, pretty consistent season, but the first half of the season was at the back of the field. Like, what I mean by back of the field is within the points in the top 10. So, it was like, P8. There was P5 in Australia, but after, I think, from Portugal onwards, it's just almost always top six. So, what do you think changed from the first half of the season to the second half?
Um, I think it was just kind of getting back into the F1 game after the end of last season, which I had a very good season last season, which was a bit of a surprise for me, especially starting off in COTA with I think it was a P8 in the end. Um, so I think the pace just got quicker and quicker, better and better as the season went on. I remember from last season, and any season I've done, my qualifying's been the biggest letdown, really. So at some tracks where it's hard to overtake, especially like Monaco, it's been a struggle to get good results there because I'm often starting towards the back of the midfield. But I think both qualifying and race pace improved towards the end of the season. I think the wet weather as well, we had a lot of dynamic races towards the end. I think I'm pretty good in managing that crossover point between the dry and the inter. I think that really helped. I saw a lot of people struggle towards the end of last season. So I think it's just really becoming more consistent in a race, making less mistakes and just setting consistent lap times.
Yeah, well, you were talking about Monaco. We see here that you were qualifying P13 with 5.7 seconds. We've got the average gap here for the qualifying, and we see that it is 1.5 seconds. But if we take out Monaco, then we're left with a 0.95, which means that you're under a second. We were just talking about Khan. He was on 1.8 seconds, sorry. He was on 1.8 seconds on average qualifying gap. He said, okay, next season I need to work on my qualifying. Um, you're kind of saying the same, even though you're like within 1 second. Do you think that it really is the qualifying where you need to improve, or is it the race as well?
Um, I think for both sim racing and my karting, my qualifying's
Mm-hmm.
been it's just I can't do a one lap pace. It's not been my strong point. I crashed in Monaco qualifying. I only got one lap in the end. I think it's just going to be easier for me to finish in a stronger position if I'm up there at the front right from the beginning rather than having to work my way through the field. Like starting 13th in Monaco wasn't ideal. There are a couple of other races where I was qualifying outside the top 10, in the bottom half of the top 10. But if I can start getting myself, I think it's either top six, top five, then I'm already up there with the front runners. I don't have to risk it with a couple of overtakes. I can take my time a little bit more, get into a better rhythm rather than trying to push my way through the field. And that will ultimately, I think, stop me making more mistakes. I can get into a better rhythm rather than having to push at the start of the stint. I can conserve tyres, conserve fuel run my race how I want to run my race rather than making my way through the field all the time.
Yeah, because I think that is indeed crucial. It's a bit like what Khan said earlier. You want to start
Similar
as
problems,
yeah,
yeah.
you want to start as far as possible to the front to avoid these like lap one incidents at the start of the race where you're like just involved in someone doing something crazy and then a wing flows off or anything. You need to pit and replace that. It's really crucial to get the qualifying, like get it as far to the front because the better drivers are at the front as well. So you're going to get less incidents when you're at the front. And I think um, we've got one here that says pretty much the opposite. We've got the Netherlands, Zandvoort. You qualified P4, but you fell down to P12 in the end. I think that was last place because we had a lot of DNFs. Um, but on the other hand, one of those examples where you did get the result out of qualifying is I think Mexico. You qualified P6, you got P5 in the end, and I think that just shows how much that consistency over both qualifying and the race, how if you can combine that, you can really get good results in.
Yeah, I think it's been a mixed season for me in terms of my qualifying to race performance. You bring up Zandvoort. I think I had an incident towards the end of that race, which was particularly frustrating, having qualified fourth. You know, when I qualified towards the back and I have a bad race, I don't really lose much. But having qualified on the second row of the grid,
Yeah.
was really a kind of slap in the face, really. But I think looking at a lot of my starts this season, I think I've had quite a big net gain from qualifying to race. So yeah, I think that's something I can take forward into next season as well.
Yeah, well, the reason that I've added you to this topic where we're kind of talking about the people who have put in performances that we didn't really expect at the start of the season, despite having you on P3 last season. You even won a race, one in Monza, and you got a podium as well in Austria in round 9, second place that was. Um, Despite your good results last season, I've added you to this list of like a little bit of those under the radar people for this season. The reason behind that is because we had Callum and Dylan. They got into this season very well. We of course have Luke Davies at the front, Avesta Gabadi, Legend Rosenberg. He's of course in the mix at the front. Um, I did expect you to be much lower than where you ended up. So you got P5 in the end. Are you satisfied with the result that you got?
Yeah, I'd say so, considering that the season started with me just about scraping into the top 10. And fortunately, I didn't get a podium this season, which is probably one of my targets. I think P5 probably reflects the season I have pretty well. I wasn't up there at the front fighting for podiums, but then I felt comfortably able to get myself inside the top 10 most weeks. So I think top 5 is a strong finish. Maybe next season we'll look to try and get top 3 again. We'll just have to see how each race comes.
Yeah, so the question that I wanted to ask here towards the end of this topic, for your part at least, was I've picked up one win in season 10. That was Spa race. You've picked up a win last season. You've gone winless this season as well. You just scored consistent results, but it didn't really get to a podium. Do you think that there's a chance that if you improve on what you were saying, the qualifying, the race, if you can combine those things together, is there another chance that you may get next season to get another win on the board? Or do you think like, oh, we're just going to see Legend, Avesta, Luke, those people at the front, I want to claim like P5 every race and then I'm satisfied? Or do you really think like, oh, there's a chance for this win, I'm going to go for this win next season?
Yeah, I think the guys you mentioned, they're names that are always going to be inside the top 5, top 3, fighting for wins and podiums. So I think if I can improve my qualifying and get into that top 5 at the start of the race, I can stick to the back of them with the DRS, hopefully capitalize on any incidents that occur. That's mainly how I got the win in Monza, but I'm not going to complain about that. That's really, I think, where my season, how I finished P5 this season, P3 last season, just staying out of trouble, not getting involved in any incidents, no corner cutting penalties, track limits and whatnot. So no, I do think I can next season I can push the front guys to the podiums. Uh, Maybe for a win, we'll have to wait and see. I think I showed my pace towards the end of the season, especially with the result in Mexico and Silverstone. I think P5 and P4 for those two. So yeah, I think pushing for podiums is going to be the aim for next season. I think every driver wants to push as high up the grid as possible. I'll be satisfied with a top five finish, but a podium would be even better.
Yeah, and of course we have had a 10 race season for this one for season 14. Perhaps we could go back to 12 races. I don't know that. Evan knows that, so we'll have to ask him. But yeah, if we do extend the season with 2 more races, will that benefit you, or do you think like, oh, let's just keep it short and try and get the best results in those few races and just hope we get out as high on the list as possible? Do you think like, oh, I have consistency, let's have the season go long and then see where it ends?
Well, it depends what two tracks get added. If they're
Yeah.
two tracks I'm good at, I'm not going to be complaining. But no, I don't think it would hinder me. I don't think it'd give me much of an advantage. I think if I'm just going to continue being as consistent as I am, doing the job I'm doing, then I'll have a good chance of finishing in a solid position, whether it's 10 races or 12. So yeah, it might benefit some of the front runners who are constantly scoring points inside the top five, top three. If they have a bad race, they have a couple extra to
Yeah.
recover from it. But I think if I'm going to finish in the top five every week, then I set for a top five finish in the championship. So who knows? We'll just have to wait and see what happens next season.
Yeah, it's exactly what you're saying. Like, there's always these people at the front. They're really quick and they can do like the best pace possible. They can sometimes even keep up with Legend with that DRS. That is really crucial, of course. But they're also really often involved in certain incidents. And name a few, that would be Callum, for example. Juan Hernandez, he's often involved in one of those incidents that really end the race. And you've got Avesta, uh, you know it. Those are really the people that you can capitalize off, like you said. Um, so yeah, I think that's an amazing plan for next season, Nathan.
Nathan, I remember, I think most of the races, especially last season, but also this season, you like there is a crash, there is a spin in front of you, you somehow get involved in it in an unlucky way, but somehow, like in 10, 15 laps into the race, you're on my rear view mirror. How would you do that?
I don't know. I don't know. I always seem to be involved in unlucky incidents, and there's never a safety car. And when I don't need a safety car, there's a safety car. It's a little bit frustrating. Um, I don't know, really. I think it's just getting your head down and just not letting any incidents bother you or play in your mind. Just got to do the job at hand and recover from it as
Yeah,
quickly as possible.
I think you're pretty good at recovery drives.
Yeah, I think I can very well agree on that, and I think that the mindset to just have a go at it, not like think like, oh, I crashed or I lost my front wing, the race is over, just get going.
Mm.
I think that is indeed the best mindset, and especially when you're at the start of a race, then if you're involved in like an incident, there's always like gonna be a safety car later on. We didn't have one in Brazil, which is funny enough because we normally do have one, and as long as you like think, oh, there's enough chances to get back, just like you're doing, Nathan, then I think that means that you're gonna have results like you are having with well, let's say P6, P5, those kind of results.
Yeah, I mean, a race is X number of laps, so it's not over on lap one, it's not over on lap five. If you get into an incident, you just gotta.
Yeah,
I mean, if anything, it's extra motivation to keep pushing and drive a little bit faster.
yeah, exactly. Well, I thank you, Nathan, for coming here, coming to answer some questions, give your opinions on certain things of your season.
No worries.
I think that will be it for your part, and me and Khan will continue for the rest of this topic, talking about a few under the radar performances we had this season, and a few people who have impressed us over this season. But that's it for you, Nathan. Thanks once again, and we hope to see you doing well next season on the grid again in season 15.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'll see you on the
Thank
grid
you.
next season.
We've got the rest of this topic. We're talking about people like Julius. We're talking about people like Sam Fate, Matthew Cobbs, Niels Hardle even. He got a P3 in Great Britain in the qualifying.
That was an incredible
That
performance.
was an incredible lap. Of course, his teammate got pole in that lap, which kind of overshadowed the performance. But we need to look at Niels Hardle on like his performances. He normally is not that much that far in the list, if you know what I mean,
Definitely.
at the top. So I think that was a good performance. Someone else who I need to talk about is Sam Fate, because when we look at Sam Fate's results this season, it's very mixed, and it's quite the opposite of what we had with Nathan here. As you can see, race finishing positions, we have Texas, which is the first race. He finished P10. That's not really too big of a result. I mean, it's decent, but it's not really like a staggering result for him. But then when we look to the race
Yeah.
after that one, we see a podium finish for Sam Fate. Where the did that come from?
I think Sam has that pace, you know. I think when he's on it, he's just very quick and he knows how to fight those guys at the front. But what he lacks is the consistency. I think there are some points in the race. I don't know if it's pressure or if it's the how the race goes, but he just makes some mistakes that are at the most crucial points. I think that's what costs him the most.
Yeah, because we see 6 DNFs for him this season. It's kind of like he's just really aggressive and settling only for a result that is really good. I think that podium at the start of this season, that P3 that he got in Australia after a lot of things happened. Little flashback there. We had Legend leading the race with Lewis on his tail for a really long time. We didn't think anything would happen at the end between those two. Lewis somehow managed to bottle that result there. He didn't finish P2. He finished somewhere down the order. I believe it was P5 or P6 that was. Then we had some incidents between Avesta and Juan, I believe. Or, I believe, yeah. Avesta was involved. There were many incidents at the, well, back of the grid. Not saying that, but podium
Yeah.
finishes. P3, P4, those kind of places, there were some incidents. And I think Sam just really benefited from those people crashing out, getting involved in an incident late in the race. Um, and I think that's just put him up to P3. And
Yeah.
I think he kind of trusted in his performances a little bit too much there, because you can see Hungary, he got a DNF. He was on for a good race. I believe he got involved in an incident later in the race. I think he was around P5, that was. You can see on the screen here actually. He was in P5 for almost the entire race, I think. And then he just made a mistake, and that got him a DNF. In Saudi Arabia, he got P8 again, so that's a decent result, but he started P8 as well, so it's just pretty much driving it home. Then Netherlands, DNF, Portugal, DNF, Monaco, DNF. Monaco, we did have a lot of DNFs, so it's not really too big of a deal. But then Great Britain again, he got a P3, which is a really positive result for him. But then the last two races, he ended with a DNF as well. So you see what I mean there with like very mixed results. And
Definitely. Yeah. I think he has that it's just my opinion, of course, but he has that all or nothing mindset when he's racing. He's he just has to be fighting for the podium, or if he is, I don't know, it's P10, P12, whatever. I think he just feels like it's not worth it. So when he is up there, he pushes himself, he pushes the limits. But when he is back on the grid, I think he just doesn't push maximum to his potential. You know what I mean?
yeah, I think that kind of is the story for the whole Red Bull team. Of course, we had Nils, who was a main for Red Bull as well. That one race where he got P3 in qualifying, he drove for Alpine at that race. Um, but I think that is just the main story for Red Bull. They're expecting too much for what they can achieve, but um, on the other hand, if they just keep their head down, just like Nathan said, keep that mindset of, okay, I'm just gonna see what I can get, try my best, and just not make any mistakes, I think they could get very good results because both
For sure.
Niels and Sam are very well capable of keeping the car on track and keeping a good pace.
Definitely. I think I had plenty of battles with Nils on track. I don't remember many with Sam, but Nils really has that pace. He is also very fast, but I think he also lacks consistency, or like as you said, they just expect too much sometimes.
Yeah. Well, then we'll quickly get into. We'll just keep it short. The record of Julius. He managed to get three fastest laps in a row. Of course, his race was pretty much done at those stages, but he just decided like, okay, let's give it a go. Let's try and get that fastest lap. Once he was on that three in a row streak, he it was looking like he was gonna go for it every race, but we're not used of this from Julius. I mean, for him to get points even is a very good result. He got 18th in the end. He got 8 points. But yeah, what we're really looking at is, of course, the record of those three fastest laps in a row. Um, what really are the things that Julius needs to improve on outside of having these moments where he's like, okay, let's just go for this fastest lap. Let's see where it ends. Because if you look at the rest of the season, no offense, of course, but I mean his qualifyings are pretty good actually. But if you look at the races, it's mostly a massive gap to the front. I believe his average gap to the leader is 88 seconds. That's on most tracks. That's a
Yeah,
lap down. So what really can Julius do to actually improve and to actually get better results? Because I think that's really what he wants. He wants those better results, right?
definitely he does. And I think it's both confidence and consistency once again, because of course there are some tracks he was really slow at, but I think the problem he has is that um, he just expects to be up there immediately. Like sometimes you have to be realistic. That's what I do. If I don't have the pace, I don't push the car to a limit where I know that I'm going to crash.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why I think he sometimes spins a lot, sometimes crashes a lot. Sometimes you just have to settle for the pace you got for that race and just keep it consistent. So rather than doing like a 121 a lap and 128 the other lap, just go 26 the whole race, like or around that pace. So if he manages to do that, if he manages to get that calm, consistency, and some confidence, I think he will be able to do get much better results.
Yeah, I mean, he was on for a good result in Monaco, so was Niels Hardel. They were both actually on like track to get a podium. They got involved in an accident later on, which meant they tumbled down the order and eventually, well, I think Sauber even got a DNF. No, he didn't. Julius didn't get a DNF. I think Niels Hardel did get a DNF. Um, how do you deal with those moments where you're like close to getting a podium, and then you suddenly get involved in an accident, and then you tumble down the order, and your race is done? Because I think that really hit them in the face quite a lot, both Nils and Julius.
Yeah, definitely. I remember, I think Julius was P3 at some point. I remember he
Yeah,
was in front of me. But like those moments, of course, are not great. And it's very difficult to focus back on the race after you have such an accident or an incident. but it's also where you gain the positions, you know, like if you make that mistake, you can either just, okay, that's my race done, or keep your head straight and just go on. And sometimes, of course, not always, but if you just go back on track and continue your race, even if you're down to P15 or whatever, there will be some opportunities. There may be a crash in front, there may be an incident or a safety car, so you never know. I think whatever happens, you just have to continue. And I know it's very difficult at times because I race as well, and you know, it ends all your motivation. It feels like all of your time was a waste for the race, but it shouldn't be like that because there are still lots to earn in such races.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Um, One last man that we need to look at. He didn't really do many races this season, but he had some great performances. That is Matthew Cobbs. He managed to get himself in P11, accumulating a total of 28 points. That is. His best finish was a third place in Monaco. That was his only podium of the race and his first podium in his career. And he got a surprise pole position in Great Britain in round 8. I think if Matthew can attend a few more races than what was it? It was 5. If Matthew can attend a little bit more than 5 races, then we have an extra competitor for those top 5 places.
Definitely, it will set me back one more position in the midfield.
Yeah, you're just gonna
But
tumble down until you're outside of the top 10, and that's just going to be where you're gonna be at the end of the season. No,
hopefully not.
you do you part, you do your parts, and they do their parts. I think, yeah, Matthew,
Exactly.
he really showed that he can be there, and I can't really remember if he got himself involved in many accidents. I believe in Australia he did get involved in one, but for the rest of it, if you look at the results, except for Great Britain, maybe he got P7 there after qualifying on pole. For the rest of it, if you look at the results that he got over the season compared with his qualifying positions, I think they're pretty good. Mexico is a DNF where he qualified P7. That's maybe quite a shame. He could have gotten quite a bit more points out of that, but overall, I think Matthew is quite comparable to Nathan in terms of pace and consistency.
Definitely. I think he just lacks attendance, you know.
Yeah.
If he just shows up, he will be fighting for some good positions.
Yeah, well, let's hope he will then next season. I think that should be it for this topic. Next up, we have a topic about people who are having good results halfway in the race and then manage to still end up with close to 0 points. Alright, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for the next topic that is going to be about Callum and Alpine. Both of their seasons were pretty good, you could say, if you just look at the standings. Although both me and Cam, we believe that they had a little bit more, and I think they themselves believe that as well. Can, if we look at Callum's season, we can see that he got P7 in the end, which is
Yes,
a good result for the season that he was on. But there was more to get.
absolutely. I think Callum is currently, I would say, top five drivers in terms of pace. But you can see from his qualifying results as well, if we just take a look at them, he's always just up there with a great qualifying position. But unfortunately, the race result is just not there.
Yeah. I mean, if we look at his average qualifying gap, he's like the closest to Legend, um, except for Legend himself. So he's on a 0.27, which means he's only just under 3 tenths off most of the times to pole. He's pretty good in qualifying, so I don't see why the issues are there in the race. Let's take, for example, we'll get this Texas race at the start. He qualifies in P3 and then he finishes in P18.
Yeah, I think um, on that race he made a mistake twice, it should be, I believe so. And um, as I said, he has that qualifying pace. He in on single lap he just does wonders. But in the race, sometimes he's unlucky, and sometimes I don't know. Maybe it's the pressure, you know. In Texas, he definitely had a chance to fight for the win. Maybe, of course, there's legend is the reality of FVR for now, but you know, he is still fast and he can follow the leader. So there's always a chance, I think. And with those mistakes, I think it cost him a few wins throughout the season, including Texas.
Yeah, and I mean, um, when we look at his races, in the end, he got two P2s. He managed to actually fulfill the expectations there. He was on for possible win in Brazil, but he just got P2 as Avesta won that race. Um, let's look at another race where exactly this happened. This promising start that went to a disappointing failure in the end. One of those races is, of course, Hungary, where he finished sixth after qualifying in P3. He was leading the race for a really long time. We had Legend
Yeah,
on a different strategy, I believe. Callum, he was on all tires for a really long time, but he kept off everyone behind, really. He managed to lead the race for a really long time, and then at one sudden moment, everything really just crumbled apart, and Callum fell down the order like a stone, really. Uh,
exactly. So, in the after the first safety car restart, I think he was just very unlucky because Legend normally doesn't make any mistakes, but he had wheel spin and he just got in the column, which
mhm.
forced him to pit.
Yeah,
And but after that, he was somewhat lucky with a safety car, which put him back on the fight for the win, which, as you said, he led the race for quite a long time. But then there was a virtual safety car period, which is where he made that mistake. He was just a little over the delta, so it went negative, and he just got a drive-through penalty, which just ended his race. I think it was with 5 laps to go. Of course, you know, it's a mistake, but
yeah,
it's also virtual safety car. It shouldn't be, but unfortunately, such things happen.
yeah, it's really unlucky. You could say it's his own mistake, like you said. He shouldn't have done it, and he shouldn't have got the drive-through, but he did. And regardless of whether it's his own fault or not, it's just really unlucky to see a drive like that just completely vanishing, really, because well, he would have been well on the podium, and he got
Exactly.
P6, and I think that really writes the story for most of Callum's season. I mean, if you look at his championship standing, in the end, he got P7 on a total of 62 points. He was shared sixth with Tyler in the end, but it really did look like Callum was supposed to be in the top three for the whole season. Really, it was a little bit
For sure, yeah.
between him and Dylan. I would say they are very comparable in terms of pace. I think Avesta and Legend they're a little bit faster than both of them, but they can do very well. And to see Callum ending up in P7 really is disappointing. And I hope that he can actually get a good result in next season.
I think he definitely will. He will just minimize those mistakes and maximize the points, you know?
I think it will be a matter of time before we see Callum winning a race, actually, because he's been in the lead for a lot of races, and he didn't finish
Definitely.
in P1. Now let's go to the team that we want to talk about that are kind of experiencing this same stuff. That is Alpine. They have had very promising results, and they also had pretty big downfalls. Um, to name a few, we had that great qualifying in Great Britain. We were just talking about with Matthew Kops and Nils Hardel. They got a P1 and P3 in Britain against all expectations, really. And then in the race, it kind of crumbled apart, and I don't believe they got many points out of that race.
I don't think so, yeah.
So that is really the story for Alpine as well. One more to add to that list is Zandvoort, where the star boy of this team, really, that being Dylan McClemens, um, he was in that race in Zandvoort. He qualified in P3 and he finished in P8. I believe that was because of speeding in the pit lane penalty that he got halfway through the race. We saw many people actually picking up that penalty. I think Legend got one as well.
It did, and he did, and I think it cost him a win recently.
Yeah. So that's really disappointing to see for not only Dylan but for Alpine as well. They're really often they're at the front of this race. They have the resources to get a good result, to get even a double podium. I think in Zandvoort, I remember me and Enzo, we were commentating, and we said to each other, okay, these guys, they can work together. They're right on the tail of Legend. They can get a 1-2 out of this. We did not see Callum getting P4 and Dylan getting P8 midway through this race. We were thinking, okay, they can get 2 and 3. They were in 2 and 3 at that time. They were fighting with Legend for the win. And in the end, they got 4 and 8, which is just really a shame to see. Because these guys, they both have great potential, and they both have delivered that potential in this season.
Definitely, it's never good to just be up there with your teammate, have the strategic advantage, but get a very disappointing result.
Yeah, exactly. Let's head to the next topic. That is going to be for a great battle that we've witnessed this season, which will be the battle for P2.
Hello, Luke. Welcome. How are you doing?
Hey, Khan, I'm doing pretty well. Doing pretty decent.
All right, great. So, for this season, maybe it was not the season you would have hoped for in terms of the championship battle, but of course, the battle for the second in the championship to be the vice champion, it was pretty tight between you, Dylan, and Avesta. So, how do you think the whole season went for that battle?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, as you said, I'd like to be fighting for titles again. And yeah, I think to be honest, this is a pretty good season for me considering, I guess, everything. I mean, season 13 was probably my worst FER season to date. I mean, it's seventh in the standings. It could have been a lot better, but yeah, I had a few rough races that season, but I really just wanted to kind of bounce back from that. Only one podium, pretty early on, which yeah, again is not great. But this season, I think I've really kind of got to grips with this game a little more. Kind of got over a few of the mental blocks that I had, I guess, coming into the game. And yeah, got a few good results. Was much more consistent. Kind of more used to what you're seeing from me in previous seasons. And yeah, I feel like I maximized a lot of results when where I guess I didn't do that in season 13. So yeah, just kind of fresh start, changed the team up. Obviously with McLaren for 5 seasons, which is a long time in this league. Yeah, so just mix a few things up, and yeah, I think it was a pretty good step in the right direction. And yeah, third in the championship, I'd have taken that before the season started.
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the season, you were even saying like, "Oh, I'm struggling so much." We could see that on the races as well. You were really struggling to keep up with the pace. I think after Saudi Arabia, it was that you really started and getting up to that pace to actually follow the rest of the guys. We'll just ignore the Monaco part for this bit, but yeah, your Saudi Arabia P3, where did that come from? Because you were literally, well, we couldn't say nowhere, but at the start of the season, it looked like you were going to be nowhere for pretty much the whole season. Did you change anything for Saudi Arabia, or was it just I keep doing the same and then see how it goes?
Well, yeah, yeah, I remember the first kind of Kota was the first one, and I actually did pretty good quali, but yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't feel too strong. Again, yeah, I think yeah, I was quite close in quali P4, so I was quite happy with that, and I got a brilliant start. I think I got into third, but yeah, I just as the rhythm settled in, I didn't have any pace, and for me that's very strange to have less race pace than quali pace for me. That's usually always been the other way around. So yeah, I still think I got fourth in that race, but that's again, I maximized the result there, but it just wasn't. I didn't feel like I was where I needed to be in terms of what I wanted to do for this season. But yeah, I mean, as you mentioned with Saudi, um, yeah, it'd been. I mean, I was on the hunt for the podium because I missed out uh, a few times in season 13. Obviously, I've been thinking about
Hmm.
a win for a while, but the first step was just get on the podium once. And so yeah, obviously, season later, Saudi's statistically my best track,
Yeah.
and I thought, yeah, I can do something here. So yeah, it was a pretty good race. Obviously the DRS is a massive help, but it's one of my I'd say it's probably my best track. A lot of people would say that about themselves, but I'd say Saudi's probably my best track. It has historically been, and that didn't really change this game. So yeah, I just kind of kept with the top guys with the DRS. Things like a 5 card battle. I just let them do their thing. Avesta Tyler had a crash. And yeah, I
Yeah.
just kind of didn't get any penalties. I actually got a bit of wing damage on Tyler, but that was a bit of a scare near the end. But yeah, just it was a good race, brilliant, good confidence booster, I think. And yeah, that really just got on the podium after about a season, long time for me. But yeah, just really kind of set what kind of the precedent for the season was going to be and how I was going to approach it going forward.
Yeah, because you got very lucky in the end, perhaps with that incident between Avesta and Tyler. Um, then looking to at the battle for like the whole season. Of course, we saw Legend at the start of the season. He won like 5 in a row at the start. Portugal he missed, but pretty much every race that he did, he won. We'll get into that later, of course, but he was gone at the start of the season. Avesta wasn't really having the results at the start. Then we had Dylan, who actually had a magical start, and then we had you. You were having a bit of an average start, we could say. You're seeing, yeah, P4, P7, P4 for the first three, and then of course that P3 in Saudi Arabia.
For me, uh, I think again this is a really big difference I had from season 13 where season 14 I really just kind of I always say this but I absolutely took it race by race.
Mm-hmm.
I tried to obviously I'm the one typing it into the sheet but I tried not to look at the standings. I tried not to think oh where can I get up to if I get this result. You know I just really just took it absolutely race by race, lap by lap. In season 13, I think I was really kind of almost fixated on where am I going to finish in the championship, or to get P5 in the championship, I need to win the race or something. And I think I just got a bit carried away. I think I just had a great mental reset in terms of that. And yeah, I realized with about 2 rounds to go, oh, P2's
There's
definitely on the
actually
cards
things
here.
to get.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I
yeah. I mean,
realized
it
okay.
it was around like round 8 where we realized, oh, there's like such a tight gap between 2 and 4 for those three guys.
Yeah, yeah.
This really is a battle till the end. At that point, I think Legend already got his championship, but we did really have a good battle for P2 in the end, and you managed to get P3. It was Avesta who got P2 as he really made a great comeback. We were talking about Dylan earlier, me and Khan. He had a good start to this season. He managed to get P2 the most of anyone this season, but he didn't manage to get that P2 in front of his name in the end of the sheet that you filled in. He got himself before. He was struggling with making tiny mistakes that really ruined his races, really ruined his championship in the end. Were you focusing on not making these mistakes and keeping the consistency there, a bit like Nathan did, as we were talking to him earlier as well? Just keeping that mindset of, okay, when I make a mistake, I'm just gonna continue, see where it ends, and keep that up. Was that your plan, or are you really a bit more like Avesta, saying like, okay, I want to finish first, and the rest I don't give a shit about? How do you deal with that?
I mean, yeah, I think it's historically everyone's known. I'm more of a consistent driver. Not that I play it safe, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna throw the kitchen sink at trying to get one position just to DNF. So, um, yeah, I mean, I think that's. I mean, you look at season 11 is the big one where I just,
Yeah.
consistently picked up some podiums, decent results where Legend didn't. Got a win wherever I could.
Yeah.
And yeah, just I guess that's my philosophy, and it's worked for me. And it worked again in terms of Dylan. Obviously, Avesta just was unstoppable in the last few rounds. I mean, he
Yeah.
got 3 wins in a row, so I couldn't do much about that. But yeah, definitely with Dylan. Obviously, he got very unlucky in Brazil with the disconnect, but I definitely think I could have still fought with him on track, because I think he was on the softs at the time. But yeah, it really did come down to the final few, like, moments. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, there are always in racing, it's always moments, but definitely, um, it's really just my philosophy is just you have to minimize the risk whenever, I guess, you're making a move or anything, because there's no point
Yeah.
in losing. With an aggressive driving style, you might gain 20 points over a season, but if you lose 20 in one race, it doesn't matter with one mistake. And I just think I'm not going to ever change that key part of me. I can be
Mm-hmm.
aggressive
Yeah,
when I
the
want to be,
approach.
but yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That's my approach, and it's worked for me. I'll continue to do that, and I think it will continue to work in the future.
Yeah, well, it shows that it
Speaking of
works because yeah.
Mm.
speaking of mistakes, of course, we're not used to seeing you make mistakes, but what happened in Monaco? I think it was the first lap you were just out
Mm.
of the race. I don't remember exactly what happened, but can you just explain that moment?
Yeah, I mean, again, you said it's unusual of me, and yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it is because I think my last DNF was like season 10, and then before that, I think I only had like I think this is my fourth DNF ever, um, in over 110 races. So it's a pretty good record, considering considering that. But yeah, I've done the infamous, I guess, FVR move, which is crash on the inside of the casino,
I've
just
done
tap the
that as
wall.
well.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's an easy one to do. I didn't expect to do it. I felt good that day. Probably watching the race back, could have got a podium. I was quite annoyed after that one. It's really, I think it's the one moment, again, I was talking about moments, but it's the one moment in the season where I think, yeah, I could have definitely got something there. Because then Avesta, I think, DNF'd like 2 laps after me. So if I get, let's say, P3 there, then I get P2 in the championship. So this shows there's still improvement to be made. Um, it's it's definitely, again, Monaco was one of my strongest tracks. 2 wins there, multiple podiums. Could have added another one. But yeah, definitely could have, if not got P2, you could have had a big point swing back on Avesta. Um, and yeah, I just think it's, I know it's rare of me. It's not something that bothered me. I came back next week, and I still got a podium again in Silverstone 2 rounds later, I think, or the next round. So yeah,
Yeah.
it really didn't affect me all too much, and yeah, just bounced back from it as best I could.
Yeah, I mean, if we look like overall for this complete battle, it's kind of what you were saying. Avesta Gabadi, he did DNF multiple times. in this season. He's really often involved in those incidents. I've sent him some questions in the afternoon, and he gave one clear answer. And I think the summary of that answer is that he is not planning on ever holding back. I've asked him whether or not he gained any confidence out of that comeback run at the end of the season. Of course, you can see here uh, from halfway, somewhere around halfway, round 5, he pretty much got a win in every race, except for Monaco. He DNF'd there, but he got 68% of his total points out of the last 5 races. I asked him whether or not he gained any confidence out of that. He said, no, I'm not gaining any confidence out of any performance. I know what I can do, and that's it. And I think that really describes Avesta, because he's always aggressive. It's one of the questions that I asked as well. How do you deal with the incidents that you were in? For example, Hungary, where he got involved in an accident with Juan Hernandez in the last lap, actually. Same goes for Saudi. He got involved in an accident with Tyler towards the end, which you benefited from in the end. I've asked him, are you going to take more of a cautious approach to next season? Can you afford to take a more cautious approach? Because you still have Legend. He won a battle with Legend for the championship. He said, no, I'm not going to take a cautious approach. I'm just going to be more aggressive than ever. That's pretty much what he said.
Yeah.
Do you think that will help him in the end? Do you think Avesta and his mindset of getting it as aggressive as possible and really showing that he is, in terms of what he believes, the best on the track, do you think that will help him, or do you think that will set him back? That's a question for both you and Can. So,
Well, just want to say one thing. If Avesta says he's gained no confidence from that last run, I think he's a liar, because he won 4 out of 5 of the last races. You know, that's ridiculous, that run, for any driver. So, I mean, we've shown he's got the materials, he has the ability to win a championship. He's taken Legend to the final round and whatever, but, you know, he got a race ban earlier in that season.
yeah.
Vesta could definitely be, you know, season 13 alone, if you look at, he could definitely be champion at some point.
He should be.
Yeah, and in the past, you know, he's made, obviously, attendance and stuff, which has been out of his control. But there's certain things, certain moments. Again, it all leads back to that for me. He could definitely be champion. There's just a few things he just needs to refine, but he has the real pace and aggression, but sometimes it doesn't always pay off. I mean, I just think back to like season 9 with Lewis. I mean, he is, I guess the most aggressive he's more aggressive than Legend in a championship fight, definitely. I mean, yeah, he won out in the end, but he also dropped, like, he got a race ban and dropped like a race win at some point. In like the first 3 races, and I took him to the final round with consistency. So
yeah.
They definitely both have the strengths, but Avesta could be a champion if certain things happened. And equally, I could be more than a 2-time champion if I guess I'd take a different approach as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's definitely something to think about. I mean, I'm intrigued to see if he can take the fight to Legend next season, because I know Legend wasn't there at a few of the races that Avesta won, but you don't win 4 out of 5 races in, you know, the closing 5 rounds and not carry that momentum at all into the next season. So I'm excited to see what happens. Not sure I'll be up there, but I'll do my best. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Can, I've asked Avesta this question as well. How do you deal with the pressure when you're driving against competitors that have a better all-time record than himself and a record that is worse than his own record? What he said was pretty much the clear message that we've got from him all the time. He said, I haven't seen anyone improve from last season really. Uh, I expect myself to be P1 if I don't make any silly mistakes. Uh, what do you think of that, Khan? Because
Well, I think the key word here is making those silly mistakes because we all know Avesta has got that pace, and when he's up there, when he's on his day, he will just win the race and fight for the championship. But as you can see from this season, the last few races, he was just on an insane level. He just almost won every race. I think
yeah,
it was the last 5 races, right?
yeah,
But also, if you look from before Portugal, you can see the the cause what costs Avesta the championship. I think he just lacks the consistency. The last part of the season shows what he's capable of, but the first half of the season shows why he still don't have a championship.
yeah, exactly. And
Completely agree with every word of that, to be honest.
I think he actually changed his approach into these races because if you can see the first five, you see, for example, Hungary and Saudi Arabia, round three and round four. He got into an accident and he saw that that didn't work. He got P5 on both occasions in the end. And then suddenly you see towards the last five races, I haven't seen any crazy moves from Avesta in those last five races, which are surprisingly enough the races where he picked up 68% of his points.
I think it also has to do with pressure because on the second half of the season, the title was pretty much decided.
Yeah,
So maybe when Legend is also fighting for the championship, Avesta just goes for it and sometimes loses it.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I will agree. I think a lot of Avesta's best wins have all come in, I guess, scenarios where he was never in the conversation for the championship. So he can just absolutely go for it. You know, it doesn't really matter. Like, not it doesn't matter, but if he if it went all completely wrong, all he loses is the opportunity for the race win, not for a championship. So he's an absolutely exceptional driver. He's better than me right now, anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's something to think about. I mean, just as a competitor, I've raced alongside him for years now, and I mean, yeah, it's it's something you have to talk about.
Yeah, but Avesta always kind of has this approach, not only when the championship is done, but also when the championship is just started. Avesta is just like, okay, let's just send it. Let's just go for P1 and nothing less than that. The question is here, why does it give him the results in the first five races when the championship is still going? And in those last five races where the championship is pretty much done, we've seen Legend pick it up there, uh, then suddenly these results start coming in, and then he can actually make it happen. Then he can actually make it through. Why is that? What's the difference between those first five rounds and those last five rounds? There has to be a change in approach, or something has to change in the approach of the competitors, because this big of a difference between the first five rounds and the last five is pretty much unthinkable if you look at the approach of Avesta.
I mean, it might just be because Legend just wasn't there, but then he wasn't finishing second in
Yeah.
every race either.
No.
So I mean, maybe Legend not being there suddenly, I think everybody's kind of like, okay, maybe I can win the race today. But yeah, I mean, there's only been 2 winners this season. I mean, it really surprised me that Dylan didn't manage to grab one of those. I think
Mm-hmm.
they were in a big fight much of the time. I think that's what Avesta does best at, is when he's in a 1v1, like 1v1 situation with you, fighting for the win at the end. It's very, very hard to beat him.
Yeah.
But he needs to get to that position first. But he's very hard to race. I think I guess Dylan is still learning as well. Obviously he's not so experienced on the F1 game, but you know, how many P2s did P2 and threes did he get versus Avesta? Only got one P2, so I guess that's the difference.
Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, well, I think that should be it for this topic then. Had another one to cross off the list. Luke, thank you for coming out and talking about this. And we hope to see you having great results again next season.
Thank you very much, Leroy. Thanks, Khan.
Thank you for joining.
Right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the next topic. And we've got a special topic here because we're going to make an announcement. Just like we have done for the entire evening, really, we have recorded this recap of the 14th season of Formula Virtual Racing. The announcement that we are wanting to make is that me and Khan, the lineup as we have seen today, we will continue to make this kind of recap of races for the next season, but make it in episodes. So there's going to be an episode after every 2 races that is equal to every 2 weeks, and the first one will be on the 12th of February. What to expect? Well, what you can expect is that we're going to dive in a little bit more detail on every race. We're going to bring up screens and we're just going to bring up replays of races and dive into deep details on these 2 races. Expect the episodes to be about 20 to 30 minutes long, and that's pretty much it for this announcement. So we're looking forward to making it. Are we?
For sure, we are.
Good. We've got Evan here as well for the next topic that we're just about to go into. But yeah, that's it for the announcement for next season. So we hope to see you there.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing?
Hello, Cam. I'm doing very good indeed.
Good to see you here, especially after a long break in the commentary with Leroy replacing you, and then suddenly I was racing you on track. So where did that come from?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a break from being on the mic in absolute stellar replacement. Life got in the way, unfortunately, from doing commentary, so I took more of an admin approach. And then, yeah, I decided that I wanted to race because after 7 years of being involved in Saturday night leagues, I realized I never drove in one. I've owned FER for so long and never did one single race, so I did one. I wanted to see how I'd get on.
Yeah, exactly. And you were saying, okay, I want to do the race before because we saw you saying that, but then again, things got in the way of your life really, and you made your debut in Brazil. Now, how really did that go? Did you get what you expected of it, or did you want to get more out of it?
I was surprised at my early race pace because I thought it was quite good. And then the mistakes and the inexperience started creeping in, and I started
Mm-hmm.
spinning, and I had to pit early because I wrecked my tires, and then it was an absolute disaster. And then I burned all my battery 2 laps from the end and got overtaken on the last lap, and that really hurt. But no, I just wanted to do it to do it. I had no expectations, and I just wanted to go in, see what it's like to drive in an FER race, and I did. It was very fun.
Yeah, that's very nice. Well, you were in the battle with Liam Houseman and Luke Davies. That's the only time that we see Liam Houseman at the front in a real long time. But
True.
and he kept it out of the barrier this time. That's also something that we do need to add. Liam Houseman managed to complete a race, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, but yeah, you were driving against Luke, against Liam for a long time. Then you made a mistake. You spun. Did that do anything to your confidence? Did you think like, oh, uh, I'm screwed or anything, or did you just
Oh,
like, oh,
100%. The first 13 laps, I was top of the world. I'm like, I'm in a really good position here. I'm kept up with Luke and Liam. I'm in their DRS. I've great battery. I'm managing the tyres. Then I have a moment heading through Yunzhou, the final braking zone in Brazil. I have a bit of a half spin. I get it corrected, and then I press the ERS button, and the car just goes totally around, and my confidence was gone. I spun 2 laps later again, I think. So yeah, it really does affect you, mistakes and spins.
yeah, I remember seeing it on stream as well. I was like, oh, Evan, he's keeping up with these guys. How on earth is he doing that? And then And then yeah, things happened. You know, just like you were saying, you couldn't really keep control of the car like you did for the first 13 laps. But regardless of that, you finished P8 after qualifying on P9. I think there's many people who are jealous of such a performance this season. Um, let's actually talk about the other things that you did in this season, and um, with that, the absence in commentary, because normally you're used to being there pretty much every race. I don't think you ever really missed many races, did you?
Yeah, I've commentated over 120 FEI.
Exactly. You,
Yeah.
you're the most experienced man on this grid, we could argue. So, how was it to?
Sorry, way more than 120. Probably 130-ish.
It's a lot. It's many years of commentary, that's for sure.
Yes,
So,
yes it is.
so how was it to not be doing any commentary for this season? Of course, it's your own league. You started it from the ground up, and you're normally there to look into the race. Of course, you have watched some bits of the races on stream. I've seen you in the chat on a few occasions. Uh, how was it to be on the sidelines for this season?
It was weird. It was very weird at first because I had gotten so used to the Saturday night routine being running the show and commentating on the races. It was very weird at first. But then I started getting into the swing of things and I started doing it. Really, really looked forward to watching the races, watching them back. And yeah, it was very different. I'm a bit of a control freak, so
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like it at first, but I got used to it.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, I had a co-commentator as well for two of the races this season with Enzo. Sorry, that was quite fun. I think Enzo did a good job on those ones. You commentated the first two races on Texas and Australia. What did you think of the season at that point, and what did you expect of the rest of the season from that moment on? I know it's a bit difficult because we're now at the end of the season, so it's difficult to think what you thought at that moment, but you get the point.
Yeah, well, I think coming into the season, everyone expected Legend to be the top
Absolutely.
dog.
Yeah.
And Texas round one was very interesting because he was pushed very, very hard by Tyler. Tyler had his disconnect and ended up getting third in the end, I think. But he
Mhm.
was pushed very, very hard. And it kind of boded nicely for the season. We were thinking, okay, he's going to be challenged here again. This is very similar to season 11, where he was pushed by Luke the whole way. He's going to be challenged here. Then Australia, very difficult race as well. It wasn't straightforward by any stretch of the
No,
imagination. Australia never is.
we had
Dylan pushed
Lewis.
them.
Yeah, Lewis following from a
Um,
long time.
yes, yeah, no, he was. It was difficult, but he still won that. Then Hungary was very easy for him. Saudi Arabia, very easy for him. And then he won the Netherlands as well, and everyone kind of went, yeah, so this is Legends
It's
Championship.
it's done now. Yeah.
Yeah, he grew into the season very well.
And
A
to
bit
add
too
on,
well.
and to add on to that is of course that Monaco performance where he outqualified everyone by at least 4 tenths. I remember, Khan, you were 1.7 seconds behind on Legend in that
Oof.
qualifying.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So yeah, he really showed that he can do many things, many unstoppable things, and it's exactly what you said. We expected Legend to win this season from the start, but to win it in such a dominant way was really something that we maybe didn't expect. Of course, we saw Avesta at the end of the season winning four, but did Legend really give all at that moment? That is the question, and I think
No,
the
no,
answer
100%
is
he
no.
didn't.
So
If he was in a title battle, he wouldn't have did what he did. And by did what he did, I mean just slow down, not really be bothered too much. He wasn't as cutthroat as he had to be because he already had the title wrapped up. It was already his. He won 5 races on the trot at the start of the season. He started the season by breaking a record. Like,
yeah,
he had the work done at that point, so he just put the feet up, cup of tea, relaxed, and brought it home.
exactly. Now let's just actually dive into Legends topic, because now that we have Evan here, that's maybe even better. Uh, yeah, he's claimed his sixth title. He's now on double the amount of the next person on that list, being Lewis McWilliam. We haven't seen Lewis be there for a while. Can Legend go for the seventh next season? Well, he can. Will he? That's the question. Will he?
He, I mean, it's his to lose easily, because it's not like we're changing game cycle or anything.
No.
Conditions are exactly the same. The only deciding factor is if everyone else can up their game to his level. In my opinion, if he wants to, he will very easily win a sevens championship.
I think there's only maybe 5 competitors directly. The most obvious one being Avesta. I think Avesta is the only one who can truly match Legend on pace. The other 4 that I think do have a proper chance in terms of when everything falls right for them, when everything goes right for them, would be Callum, Dylan, Tyler, and Luke. But I think in terms of an actual championship battle, we would have to look at Avesta and Legend, just like we did for season 13.
Yeah, I'm gonna slightly disagree with you. I think it's between Legend and Avesta. I don't think any of them else can do it. They can challenge, but I don't think they can do it. The only person who can beat Legend next season is Avesta, because he's the only one quick enough.
Yeah, I mean that's great. That's
Maybe you can continue your driving career and fight for the title.
I want to do a Monaco, maybe, but I think poor Leroy might kill me if I'm free another Saturday to do solo commentary. So
Oh,
we'll see. We'll see.
I mean it was in some ways doable. In some occasions it was a bit of a stretch. You're just
I don't know
starting
how
to
you did that Hungary race.
You're just
Because that was
starting
your
to
first.
make
That was your
things up.
first one as well. That was a tough race.
It was, but it was good fun. I think Hungary, from my perspective, I think Hungary was the race for of the season. I didn't really watch Texas from start to finish, just like you did, with all the details and everything. I think for myself that Hungary was the race of the season, because we had seen many things happening. We saw Legend get involved in incident. We saw Avesta being really quick throughout the whole race. We thought like, oh, he has a good chance to win this one, where Legend already had won 2 in a row on that season. Then we had Juan Hernandez, who did another crazy comeback drive from, I don't know where he got it from, but he started last somewhere once again, as he always does. Many things happened in that Hungary race, so it might have seemed a little bit boring at first, but I actually enjoyed that one.
I thought Juan was going to challenge more this season. I know he didn't attend the last few races, but you mentioned him there with a good comeback drive in Hungary. I thought he was going to be up there a little bit more.
Yeah, well, he got involved in a crash, which did really ruin his things, but Juan didn't really attend all the races, to be fair, so it wasn't really a battle from start to end, but Juan was in the mix multiple times, so let's actually follow it up with a good stat. We had dominant seasons before. We've seen Lewis McWilliam. He won season 9 in a staggering fashion. He claimed 7 victories, the most of anyone in a season. However, that was over 11 races. Legend Rosenberg claimed 6 victories over 10 races this season, which means he now has the highest percentage of most races won in a season, that being, of course, 60% then. Can we expect Legend to be as dominant next season? He said he wanted more competition. Or do we expect that more competition to actually come by and give Legend a better challenge than what he's got this season?
Yeah, I think he's going to get a better challenge. Not necessarily because more competition comes along, but because dynasties have to end at some point. Dominance ends at some point. It has to eventually. And we saw season 11, we thought, oh yeah, and Luke was very surprising.
Absolutely.
season 4, even before he even won a championship, we kind of all expected them to. Lewis was very competitive, so I think it is going to be tougher for him to win next season. I'm not sure that's due to more competition, but I definitely think it's going to be tougher.
Yeah, I mean, if we look at the stats of Legend this season, I showed it to you guys earlier. It's absolutely crazy. You look at the average qualifying gap to leader from the races that he didn't attend, and of course the qualifyings then as well. He got pole pretty much every time except for one, that being the last race where you actually were in. He got P2 in qualifying on the 900s. That was a wet qualifying as well. This means that his average qualifying gap is only 13 thousandths of a second. Can you imagine how crazy that is?
Oh, that's
It's
quite
insane.
obscene.
And then to even think of the gap to the race leader, because the race is of course very stretched. You see, I believe we had Sauber, Julius. He had a gap of 88 seconds on average. When we look at the gap of Legend, that is under half a second. That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, we had another absolutely crazy man in F4 once. That was Captain Beeve. If you know, you know.
Chloe is absolutely crazy. Chloe is absolutely crazy. Who the fuck is this now? Captain Beef, he's absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy, this guy. I can't.
Yeah, I mean, what else we have to talk about, that is very well worded there, is the difference between the two men in Mercedes this season. They have gotten their Constructors' Championship in the bag here, but the lineup for this season was Legend and Tim. Now, if you look here on the left-hand side for us, we can see Legend on 148 and Tim 24 points over a whole season. Don't get me wrong, it's not terrible. Tim has shown some good races throughout the season. He has had his moments where he impressed me and perhaps impressed others as well. For example, if you look at those races, the Netherlands, Portugal, Great Britain, he's picked up a good amount of points there. But when you compare it to his teammate Legend Rosenberg, I think he's got a bit carried here.
You think? Do you think, Leroy?
I do really think.
Oh wow, that's funny. The only thing is, Legend and Tim have been teammates twice, and they've won the championship both times. And obviously, this season, Legend was just a freak of nature. But the last time they won it was the season Luke won the driver's title. So Tim, like he will say himself, he's not the quickest driver in the field, but he's a good wingman, and that's what he's good at. With the way that the draft operates, there's a natural first and second driver. You can see it in the championship standings. You can pick out who's who. Tim plays that second driver role very well, and I think that's why they're successful, because he picks up the odd points here or there, but over time, all those odd points will add up. And if he can outscore the Legends rivals' second driver, then he's doing his job. He outscored Julius Gastner in every big race this season. That's his job done. He's done his job.
Definitely, I agree, because it's not very realistic to compare him directly with Legend.
No, it's definitely not. Of course, Legend is a 6-time champion, and Tim, he almost won a race, but then he didn't.
But yeah, as Evan said, I think he just does what he needs to do, and he takes those important points.
It's
He
a bit.
did get beat by me though, so he is slow.
He is absolutely terrible. No. Just,
No, but look, when it comes down to it, he got the job done. When you look at the top three in the standings, Legend, Avesta, Luke, Mercedes, Aston, Williams, look at their second drivers,
Yeah.
Tim, Yat, and Julius. Tim outscored them both. That's all he has to do. That is his job in the team, and he's done it.
that's
Twice now.
definitely what he did to do,
Exactly.
and he's done that pretty well. Then, yeah. Um, I can compare it to season 12. I had this same plan. I teamed up with Lewis McWilliam. I was in the second split for that season, and I got to choose a driver, and then I chose Lewis McWilliam. On the other hand, we had Legend Rosenberg and Connor Rochford for that season, and Connor pretty much did what I didn't do, and that is exactly what you were talking about here. That's just beating the second drivers of Legends rivals, and he's done that pretty well. And I've seen how destructive that can be in that being Connor Rochford, and I think Tim has demonstrated that very well. So on that point, you could definitely agree. Yeah.
Now, I do want to give you, I want to cut you a little bit of slack here. That draft was silly. Legend should have never fallen to pick and been teammates of Connor Rochford. That was silly from all the split tip drivers that season.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think at the moment when we got to the draft, even Legend was left in between all the picks. The moment that I picked Lewis, which is absolutely crazy. I was like sixth, I believe. I think I was sixth in that draft, and still Legend was left to be picked. So yeah.
Yeah, but everybody did exactly what you did. They all assumed Legend was going to go first, so no one picked him first. It was very funny. Very, very funny. Hasn't happened again since, will never happen again since.
Yeah, and of course we're going to look towards next season. We have had plenty of sign-ups already. Evan, this is your moment to plug the sign-ups.
Yes, please join us. It's a fabulous community. The races, trust me, will be better than last season. We have great plans for the season. The draft, I can confirm, if you've listened to this far, I'll let you know when the draft is. It's going to be the Saturday after this goes out. That's when the draft will be. Come join us. You will have a great time. You will not regret it.
That is
And you may even get to race the commentator, right?
Yeah, you might get to race the commentator. And trust me, if I am involved in an incident and the stewards have to get involved, I will be fixing it for myself. No, that's a joke. We have a fantastic stewards team here, and I don't actually have any involvement. I literally just send the messages, and they do their work. Yeah, fabulous, fabulous stewards team built of rule gurus and ex-drivers and current drivers. So, yeah, come join us. You will feel like a racing driver.
Now, Evan, I have one more question for you. We're going back to this topic before all the Legend dominant stuff. We've talked about him for pretty much the entire evening. We thought it would be possible to avoid talking about him, but in the end it really wasn't. So, the question for you that I had is one that you've asked me before this season. It was the second round in Australia. That was towards the end of the stream. You asked me how it was to be in the commentator position, and I know you've somewhat answered this question already. You've pretty much done the same, but the other way around. You've switched from commentator to driver. Now, what do you like more? Do you like commentating more, or do you like driving more?
Can I give a very blunt answer here?
Absolutely. I did not
This
expect
has
anything
nothing
else.
to do with FVR. But I get paid to do one, I will never get paid to do the other. That is all I have to say. It's commentary, by the way, obviously. That's why I do it. I've done it for 6 years now. I have come from a squeaky chicken to what is something of a semi-decent, semi-pro. So I much prefer doing the commentary. That's where my heart is. But the driving was really fun for a change. There's a lesson to be learned from it, folks. Always try new things. Try something different. There's your motivation quote for the day.
I think that is a good one to end this one with, and to get that one into next season. It's going to start on the 1st of February, I believe, Evan.
Yes, correct.
So, yeah, just like Evan said earlier.
Hold on.
Now,
I have something interesting for this, and this is a reward for whatever drivers have stayed this far into the program.
Go
What
on.
do you want round one to be?
Well,
What track do you want round one to be?
can I give you an answer?
Yes, you're picking round one. Right here, right now.
We're going to the streets of Vegas.
I like it. Very good pick. Las Vegas round 1, folks. Even if the calendar, well, it should be out by now, when you're watching this. But even if it isn't, Las Vegas is round 1.
Let's start with an absolute show and let's end this show here. Thanks for everyone at home watching this, and we hope to see you again next season. Don't forget, next season we will be back with podcast episodes, me and Can. We will be doing one every 2 weeks. Once again, thanks for watching, and we hope to see you again next season. Anyone have anything to say?
Well, see you in the next season. Thank you for listening.